What's up? My name is Ochuko. If you're just tuning into my channel for the first time, I do a lot of things. But today, I'm a photographer, and I'll be talking to you guys about the process of becoming a photographer. Let's go. So, you just got a camera, or you saw cool photos, you've been on Instagram flipping through different pages, you keep seeing these cool pictures. Whatever it is, you have this desire to become a photographer. Alright? And how do you go about with this? What's the process? What's the steps? Well, I'm here to help you out. But briefly, I'll tell you my story, how I got into photography. So for me, I got into photography. I'm an artist initially, and my neck was really hurting from drawing, and my wrist. And I was looking for a different way to save time being on the desk, going, drawing, and but still expressing my creativity and telling these stories that I love to tell on paper. And I also had a curiosity for photography because of the level of detail that you can have on in a photo, and the level of impact you can have with a photo is a little bit different than you can have. It's unique in its own way compared to a physical drawing and other forms of art and expressions. So I was really curious about it as well. All these made sense to me. So that's why I went ahead and got a camera. I got my first camera in 2012. That's really when I focused on photography at that point. This was my first camera right here. It was a Canon S100. It's a point and shoot. I spent maybe at least 2 months researching cameras before I came to the conclusion of buying this. That was the first step for me. Now, your first step might be totally different from this. And here's what I'm going to tell you. I say there's 5 things, maybe 5 things, we'll see if I stick with that you need to consider first. Depending on where you come into the photography game from. If you just saw some cool pictures and you're totally new to this, or art form, your entrance point, you're going to have to consider other things compared to someone else like me who came in with the artistic vision already. I kind of knew what I wanted out of photography. All I needed to do was find a camera that could help me achieve that. So, here's the first thing you need to do. First thing you need to do is understand what photography is. Photography is the process of capturing not only light, that's the technical aspect of it, how to capture light. The art form of it is how to capture a story. That's the art form. The technical part is how to capture light. The art form is how to capture a story. Those pictures that really attract you and that probably got you interested in photography had a beautiful story behind it. There was an emotion in it. There was a feeling to it. The way the colors were, it made you feel a certain way. And you really enjoyed it. And that's maybe what got you into photography. That's why smartphone cameras, they highlight the camera so much, because capturing these moments are very precious to us. We hold those dearly. Now there's a technical aspect of it. If that picture was under or overexposed, these are terms I'll come back and describe later. But if technically they were off, they are not as appealing. So these are 2 different things you need to master. I wouldn't say I mastered it, but I had a good understanding of the art form. The technical aspect, I did not know. I had to learn. And just like you are here on YouTube, I went on YouTube as well to figure out how to be a photographer or how to capture light. The technical aspect of things. So those are the first 2 things, 1 and 2, I would say you need to understand. So going off of this, having a camera then comes in handy. Once you understand those 2 things, I say you start looking for a camera, because if you understand what you're trying to accomplish, it's going to help you decide what camera you need to get. Now, when I told you this was my first camera, you guys were probably like, a point and shoot? Do they even make those anymore? They don't make them as much anymore, and this was 2012, so they were a big deal back then, or a bigger deal. But why get a point and shoot versus a DSLR, which I shoot on now? Why get one camera versus the other? Well, I wanted to learn. I didn't understand how to use a camera. I didn't understand the technical aspects of it. I remember the first time I used the DSLR, I clicked it and the picture was dark. I clicked it again thinking there was something wrong that I did. Still dark. I held still, took the picture, still dark. I did not understand how to control a camera. It was on the manual setting and it was being shot for something else, and I had to change it. I did not know that. So what I really looked for in a camera was, can it have manual capacity? Does it have manual capabilities? This, it did. And not only that, but it has pro-like functions. You have the ring in the front and the ring in the back. So this allows me easy access to the menu and to be able to switch things and also modulate my exposure. So I really liked it for that. I looked for those two different things. It has a manual mode, as I mentioned. So the camera I had to get, that I was going to get, had to have a manual mode, because that's how you learn about exposure. Exposure is just how well lit a subject is that you're capturing. Overexposed is when it's really bright. Underexposed is when it's really dark. So in order to understand how to expose a photo, your camera can do this on auto mode. That's what most people do. You shoot on automatic mode and your camera will do it. But what happens when you want your picture maybe exposed a different way than what your camera is recommending? Then you need to understand how to control the exposure, and you do that in manual mode. So my camera had to have that. That is the artistic side of things. And also, well, that's taking the technical and putting your artistic spin on it. So, understanding the technical, understanding the art, and then looking for your camera. Does your camera have to be the most expensive camera in the world? No, not really, because most likely when you start off, you're going to know nothing about what you're doing, and most likely you're going to waste money on something unnecessary. If someone recommends a package or you see these package deals, don't do that. You don't need to. My first camera was that one. I think I got it on Black Friday sale. So here's what you need to do. Let's make that 4. Look for the deals. Look for good deals. Black Friday is a good time to buy a camera. I don't know when else. Cyber Monday. Look during those times. That's a great time to purchase a camera. Also, respect the refurbished. Alright? Respect the refurbished. Say it with me. Respect the refurbished. Okay? I got my Canon brand new, but that's because it was a point and shoot. $200, I got it normally around $400. Got a pretty good deal on it, alright? But my DSLR, when it was time for me to upgrade because I needed a greater level of expression on the technical end, I went with a refurbished camera. That's what I'm shooting on right now, the Nikon D7100. It's a cropped frame sensor, perfect for me. That's what I need to do. At this point, I already knew exactly why I was upgrading my camera. So I went in with a better understanding, and I was able to buy the specifics that I needed and not waste my money on anything that might be unnecessary. So respect the refurbished and also look for the deal, okay? Now, if you're going with the point and shoot, those are going out of style. I don't recommend those anymore. It's 2018. Smartphone cameras are amazing, alright? I barely use my Nikon D7000. I still use that. I rarely use my Canon S100. I still have it for just in case. It's pretty good with videos as well. But with your smartphone camera, you can do a lot, especially if you have the high end. So how much is that going to cost you? Well, you can get a good camera phone for $400. Yeah, that's right, $400 for your smartphone, which has all the other capabilities on top of a pretty decent camera. My phone is this, a Nextbit Robin. Some people may know this if you're a techie. Most people will not know it. I take a lot of my pictures on here, and you know what? Here, look at some of these pictures and tell me what you think. Those are pictures from this phone. Guess how much I got this phone? For $130. Why am I able to shoot pictures like that? Because I understand how to take pictures. I understand the technical and I understand the art form. Alright? Mixing those together, I'm able to create good images. If I had an iPhone 8 or a Google Pixel, which will probably be my next phone or camera, I will be taking that picture will look even better. But still, if you just don't know what you're doing, doesn't mean that your pictures are always going to come out good. So with a smartphone camera, you're able to do a lot, even on the cheaper end. Now, if you go up to the 700s, you have a pretty good camera at that point. Okay. Do you need to spend on the iPhone X? Not really. If you really understand what you're doing with your phone, with your pictures, and as a photographer, you don't need that level of a phone. You're paying for other things that are unnecessary. What I will say about the iPhone X though is the super slow motion. They have it in 1080p. I want to say it's 240 frames per second. If you're not familiar with that, don't worry about it. But it's very slow motion and high resolution. That is what's appealing about that camera and why I would purchase it at that price point. Other than that, the capabilities are pretty similar, all between those camera smartphones within that camera range, price range. So get a smartphone. You can make that your first phone. But like I mentioned, what did I say? Make sure it has manual mode. So Samsung, LG, HTC maybe, those phones, they possess the capability of doing manual mode. You're not going to be able to control the aperture because on smartphone cameras, the aperture is fixed. Unlike the S9, which just came out, which has a dual aperture mode, you can switch between those two. Otherwise than that, no other camera phone is able to switch through that. So what you'll be able to control is other parts of the exposure, factors that control to the exposure. So you'll be able to manipulate those. So starting off with a smartphone camera is good. Get a good smartphone camera or a smartphone. You're using your smartphone anyways, or if you have one already, just see if you have a manual mode and go with that. Learn how to control light through there. You can see what happens when you mess around with different settings. And I'll talk about more about how to expose. But then next, if you want to upgrade to a dedicated camera, then you want to go with a DSLR. I use the crop frame sensor. If you haven't seen it, check out my other video where I talk about the different sizes of a lens, of sensor sizes and what that means. Well, mine's a crop frame sensor. Let's take this for example. This is your smartphone camera sensor. And then you go to this size, which would be like my crop frame sensor. And then you go to maybe this size, which is a full frame. And then you go to this size, which is like a medium format. And the bigger it is, the higher quality the images are technically. So you want to get one where you can have pretty good, it's an upgrade obviously, so you don't want one that's still the same sensor size. Move up to a bigger one. Crop frame is a nice way to start. The bodies are lighter versus a full frame. You can even go mirrorless cameras these days. Those are a little bit more consumer friendly. They're lightweight, but the downside is those can be pretty expensive. Now if you're going to be traveling and doing a lot of different things with it, vlogging, it might be nice to have that reduced weight. But if you're going to be like me, I'm a landscape photographer. I do some portraits every now and then. But I knew that's what I was going to be doing with mine. So I went with the mirrored body. And at the price point, I actually got mine refurbished and on sale for around $400 for the body. And then you have to realize now you have the body of the camera, you add more complexities, and the lens, they're changeable. So you have to figure out what lens do you want to get. Well, you have this one right here. This was my first lens. This is the Nikon 50mm lens with f1.8 aperture. Love this lens, but initially when I got it, I didn't fully understand what it meant. I had someone helping me out, but they didn't explain the whole process to me. But with this 50mm, it's on a crop sensor, it's pretty close up. So if I put a 50mm lens on there, you will probably just be seeing my head right now. Now that doesn't help out because I'm in a relatively small room right now. If you're at an event or you have a group of friends, you're gonna be have to stand like a mile away to be able to capture everyone. But if I had a wider lens, which will be like a 24 millimeter, which is what I have on right now, you'll be able to see a lot more. So where I made the mistake was going with this. It's a great lens, and I would highly recommend it. But I think this is more of a lens, a follow-up lens. When you're starting, get a lens that's versatile. Usually the ones that come in the package with everything, if you go that route, they're not bad. They cover a wide range of focal lengths, so you can go with that. But if you get just a body like I did and you're buying a lens separate, I'll throw a link. But I have a Sigma 17 to 50 millimeter, and that's what's on right now. So you have a zoom capability, and you can go pretty wide, and then zoom into that 50 millimeters if you want. And this is a great lens, very versatile. You can use it for a lot of things, take it to different places. So I'll recommend that one. So that's one thing you need to look for, okay? And yeah, I'm talking a lot on this one. So we talked about understanding the technical part of photography, where we talked about understanding the art, and we talked about then what type of camera should you get, and now we talked about the price point. How do you spend your money? What should you get first? So like I said, prioritize on a camera that's going to be able to do a whole lot more, rather than a specialty camera. If you get something that's specialized, you're going to be only shooting one thing, versus getting something that's more versatile. You can practice your hand at landscape, portraits, a lot of different things. And once you get more advanced and you understand limitations that you may be experiencing with your current system, then you can purchase something that's going to address that better. And then, let's see, let's make it 5. What do I... Oh, remember when I said I switched to photography because my body hurt? That was one of the reasons. Well, guess what? I think I spend more time on my desk in this position now than I did when I was drawing, because a lot of people think, you've seen those memes where it's like photography or this some profession, what society thinks I do, what my mom thinks I do, what I actually do. Well, what people think you're doing with photography is going around clicking, but really a lot of photography is done on the computer. You spend a good amount of time on the computer, so you need to be able to have make sure if you're getting some high-end camera, make sure you have a good computer as well to go with that. If not, you're just wasting your time, because you're not going to be able to process a lot of those images well if you have an outdated computer. So you're going to need to get a good spend them. So instead of spending a whole lot of money on your camera, which is still good, if you have the money, you can do both. But one thing that's going to help you out is having a good computer, because then a lot of the limitations you have on your camera, you can address them on, post up, not post up, post. So you can go on your computer and then tweak some of the settings in there and get a more appealing image. And yeah, so that's one thing I'll advise on for the 5th one. Get a good computer and get a good software. I use some free software. GIMP is one I use. It's a Photoshop alternative. I use Photoscape, which is kind of I think it's Lightroom. I think Lightroom would be the equivalent. And I also use Google Nix. It has different softwares on there, and it's a package, and they have some pretty good software in there. I'll link those, but I would recommend you get those, alright? So I'm totally pumped when people find out about photography and decide to go into it. And if this helps, like